One of Colorado's most conservative elected officials gets a primary challenge from the right.
In what world is Ken Buck not conservative enough for the Republican Party?
Ken Buck isn't even the most vulnerable GOP member from Colorado who's facing a more conservative challenger. COVID, we know, led to more deaths in communities of color, which made a researcher in Colorado emotional at what he's now seeing. One of many mementos lost.
It disappeared with everything else we own in the Marshall Fire.
Replaced in an act of community kindness. And it's opening day at Colorado's Feral Cat Palace, with a new plan to contain their numbers before it's 1, 2, 3 cats in the outfield for the old ball game. Next. Coming through on your right, Republicans are expected to gain ground in the 2022 elections, though several prominent Republicans now have challengers from the far right of their party. Congressman Ken Buck couldn't garner enough support at today's GOP assembly to keep a further right rival off the ballot. In fact, Bob Lewis, real estate broker from Elbert County, finished considerably ahead of Congressman Buck in the voting at the assembly and will get the top line on the GOP primary ballot. Lewis criticized Congressman Buck for referring to election conspiracy theorists as conspiracy theorists. Republican Congressman Doug Lamborn could be in even more trouble in his primary because his challenger is far better known in state politics. State Rep Dave Williams got the top line on the GOP primary ballot in their race, and he was a featured speaker at My Pillow guy Mike Lindell's election deniers rally at the state capitol earlier this week. So this weekend, Colorado Republicans at their big state assembly down in the Springs are actually going to vote on whether to make the big lie, the idea that the 2020 election was rigged, whether to make it an official part of their platform. Here's Marshall Zellinger.
The Colorado Republican State Assembly is about more than just candidates trying to get on a ballot. It's a time when the party chooses what it stands for. This year, 15 topics, from right to life, making fentanyl possession a felony, and limiting the governor's emergency powers. It also includes resolution number 2, require integrity in elections, which includes calling for forensic audits of election machines and maintaining backup images of each hard drive in the voting system.
Do you support that?
I don't support that.
Republican Matt Crane is head of the County Clerks Association and will vote on the resolutions as a Republican delegate tomorrow. And even though he does not fully support this item, he also doesn't think that makes him a RINO, a Republican in name only.
If they don't vote straight down yes with everything that's on that resolution ballot, it doesn't mean they're a RINO. It doesn't mean they're any less of a Republican. It just means there's a difference of opinion.
All it's going to do is give Democratic campaigns and candidates something to create headaches for Republican candidates, come this fall.
David Flaherty, the pollster for conservative-leaning Magellan Strategies, told me his polling shows a party split. 50% of Republican voters prefer candidates who believe election fraud exists in Colorado.
It will help you in a Republican primary, but it will not help you in the general election in November if you happen to be the nominee. I think you do everything you can, not having to even mention the issue and avoid it so that there's nothing there.
The Republican Party used to be the party that prided itself on truth, doing the right thing and following the law. The people that are pushing that narrative about stolen elections and what happened in Mesa County, they're not following the law, they're not following the truth, and they're purposely misleading people. That's not who we are as Republicans.
I talked with state GOP chairwoman Christy Burton Brown today about this part of that platform. She told me she wanted to focus on the candidates this weekend, so that's why you didn't hear about the party on this issue. Interestingly enough, about elections, at tomorrow's assembly, I think there's still a debate. I'm not positive if they've decided on if they're going to vote electronically for who makes the ballot, or if it's going to be a paper ballot for, I think, more than 4,000 people for multiple races. That could be a long day if they choose the paper ballot method.
Wait, hold on. So Republicans who think that, like, other Republicans might cheat in their elections are talking about paper ballots, they have to sit there all night while they count them?
Perhaps. I know some of today was paper ballot when they were deciding congressional district, like Lauren Boebert qualified for that was actually a voice vote, but earlier, like Ken Buck and his opponent, I think that was a paper ballot. But tomorrow, yeah, I think they're still up in the air about whether people will contest. I don't like this electronic idea or not.
Well, if you think that there's no chance of that happening, can I draw your attention to House District 42, where Republicans are suing one another over the integrity of an election that involved only Republicans. Marshall, thank you. I should have said thank you. State Rep Mary Bradfield missed qualifying for the primary ballot by 1 vote in her House District Assembly last month in El Paso County. Instead, a guy named Carl Dent earned enough support to make the ballot. He's running for the House only because his felony conviction foiled his plans to run for sheriff. Now there's a legal dispute over who should have been allowed to vote at this assembly. The county party leader who ran the show has given in to say, you know what, maybe a committee should just pick the candidate, or they should have a redo. Colorado is closing its state-run testing site for COVID at Waterworld today. And by the end of the month, the state's going to close a third of its COVID testing sites. They're simply not being used at this point in the pandemic. The demand is so low, only about 5% of the state's capacity is being used. A researcher at CU Boulder has been tracking our life expectancy since the pandemic started. What he found recently took him by surprise, brought him to tears. Here's Anusha Roy.
Ever since COVID became a part of our everyday,
I've been monitoring the data on almost a daily basis.
Ryan Masters with CU Boulder has been watching death rates and hospitalizations and COVID cases when life expectancy in 2020 dropped.
Not a measure of average length of life.
It wasn't a surprise.
But what it allows us to do is summarize how the changes in death rates at every age.
But the fact that life expectancy in the U.S. kept dropping in 2021 was.
I think I was going to tear up.
Especially while other comparable countries rebounded after the vaccine rollout. A closer look brought more surprises.
Life expectancy in 2021 among the U.S. Hispanic population remained unchanged from 2020. And life expectancy in 2021 among Black Americans actually increased a little bit, about 0.3 years. It is worth, however, reminding the viewers that the catastrophic reductions that occurred in both the Hispanic and Black populations beg the question about what kinds of changes happened in 2021.
Being able to bring patients back for in-person visits and just really have conversations with patients about their not only their physical wellness but also their mental health. I think we're starting to see that starting to those chronic conditions starting to improve.
Jim Garcia is the CEO of Tepeyac Community Health Center.
Specialty care, I think that is an ongoing gap.
Swedish Medical Center, that's working to diversify its workforce, is optimistic these changes could eventually impact life expectancy.
Too early to predict or to draw conclusions.
So the study has yet to be peer-reviewed. Researchers themselves saying that they still have to dive into this data. But Masters, who you heard from, also said you got to think about this big picture, right? Life expectancy in the U.S. has actually been falling behind since the 1980s. So he said, don't think the pandemic was somehow caught everyone off guard, was this one-off situation, but it's been an ongoing issue, Kyle, and it's actually COVID that ended up highlighting a lot of these issues and then making them worse.
Yeah, as you've stressed, Anusha, in your reporting for the last 2 years, there wasn't anything magical about COVID in the way that it targeted communities of color. It exploited weaknesses in our healthcare system and in society.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the research here goes so far beyond COVID, right? I mean, people are also dying from overdoses and fentanyl, from healthcare issues that were put off during the pandemic. And all of that is kind of adding up. So it really is much bigger than just the pandemic.
Anusha, thank you. As we hear more conversations about child abuse prevention in the month of April, you have stepped up this past week to support Ralston House, where children in our community go to safely tell adults about abuse or violence that they've seen. Your Word of Thanks micro-giving campaign has raised $25,000 to help Ralston House deal with the largest demand for its services they've ever seen. You can scan the QR code on your screen or text the word thanks to 303-871-1491 to join me in giving to Ralston House. Their experts always stress it takes adults to protect kids. Children can't do it alone. We may never be in a position personally to witness or to report abuse, but supporting Ralston House's work with a small donation, that's something we can do to keep kids safe. We remember a former mayor of OURAY, who will be remembered for something that had nothing to do with politics.
His, presence in the media during a number of years helped put OURAY on the map.
My good news is that I get to swim with my friends today.
And it's way more than just that. It's good news, sure, and it's about recovering from a loss during the Marshall Fire. Next.
And now, completely false Rockies trivia. the mascot Dinger will someday be reburied beneath home plate.
Tonight, we remember the life of a man who briefly served as the mayor of a small town in Colorado, OURAY. That's likely not how you would have known him. Not unusual for small town mayors to have another job in life, or maybe, in the case of OURAY's former mayor, be a retiree with a whole career on the road behind him, like a convoy.
That voice that powered the song, that launched the movie, C.W. McCall in Convoy. He went by a different handle in OURAY.
I'm just Bill, just like Dad was just Bill.
Just Bill, except for when they called him Mayor Bill Freeze.
Very popular mayor. Yeah, he was a great mayor. He loved doing that.
It was the success of Convoy that led the family to turn their summer getaway spot into their new home.
You know, we first started coming out here as a family in the summers in 1963, and every year after that, and then in the mid-'70s after Convoy and so forth, we all moved out here and started our own little business and spent the rest of our lives out here.
Bill Jr. says his dad was a humble guy.
Very humble person. He really wouldn't, walk around and say, "Hi, I'm so-and-so, C.W. McCall." It was totally the opposite. People had to discover who he was.
But when the mayor's voice evoked the crackle of the CB radio, people in OURAY realized they were talking to the guy known across the USA.
He would just respond to that like, I'm just, a guy like you, and, happened to write and record a song that became very popular.
C.W. McCall, Mayor Bill Freeze, passed away last week at the age of 93.
Is there anything better than blue skies on opening day? It was such an awesome afternoon across downtown Denver as we kicked off the festivities. 66, the official high out at DIA, slightly above our average, but nowhere near that record high of 81. Unfortunately, tomorrow, the wind is back with a vengeance. We have red flag warnings in place up and down the I-25 corridor and then off to the eastern plains, 30 to 40 mile per hour wind gusts yet again. So we'll be tracking high fire danger out there. This ridge of high pressure starts scooting off to the east, making way for another storm. This one arrives for the second half of your weekend. It'll bring us some cooler temperatures and possibly a couple of quick showers. Before it arrives, soak in the sunshine if you can. Highs in the mid to upper 70s. On deck for the metro area for your Saturday, 80s into southeastern Colorado, and it should be pretty nice up in the mountains too. Next week looks a little interesting. Another strong storm potentially pushing in Tuesday and Wednesday, bringing Denver possibly some snow.
Spring is in the air in Denver with those yellow tickets peeking out of car doors and behind windshield wipers. 'Tis the season, street sweeping season. 1 week into it, the city tells us they wrote a bit more than 1,300 citations on day one of enforcement. They wrote just under 1,300 on the first day last year. Of course, it's opening day at Coors Field, which is exciting for everybody who's looking forward to baseball or the off chance that an adorable cat's going to run across the field. Because let's face it, this was the best thing that happened at Coors Field last season. That shaggy and dodgy little sucker outrunning security guards left and right. The incident did at least get the Rockies to admit that there are a bunch of feral cats around the ballpark. And it only makes sense because you got people dropping food everywhere, so there's going to be mice, so there's going to be cats. We met a woman named Jenny Lee who lives near Coors Field, and she's actually been working on this issue. She traps, neuters, and then returns stray cats back into their neighborhood so that they don't end up with bigger cat families. She says that 75% of kittens born outdoors will not make it. So this is a way to save future animals from what can be a really sad end.
I just can't handle cats being out there and suffering and reproducing and kittens dying under bushes, and I just can't deal. The end goal is to have fewer cats on the street and outside.
Now, occasionally, some of the cats they find are able to be trained and adopted out. I know people are going to ask, well, what about the one cat, the one who was on TV and is famous? That shaggy and agile gray cat, Lee says she hasn't spotted it. She's pretty sure that it lives on the other side of the ballpark where the public doesn't have access.
My good news is all of these people showed up to swim with me today.
The Marshall fire stole a memento from a special time in her life. A friend found a way to make that memory whole. Good news indeed. Next.
And now, more completely false Rockies trivia. fans seated in the Purple Row must be willing and able to help the Rockies exit postseason contention.
Like many victims of the Marshall Fire, Darla Lamper lost her home and just about everything in it. But she's sharing her story on a Good News Friday around here as a single, powerful example of it. Because this story's not just a story of loss.
Water it's everything that I like to do. I grew up swimming. But the water, that's my happy place.
When she swam competitively, Darla Lamper won many awards in a storied career.
I had trophies around the room, I had ribbons on the wall.
Her prized possession, her Navy swimming parka and all its history.
So it was 34 years old, and it had been through a lot.
She wore it to the outdoor swimming pool in Boulder for the last 2 decades. She wore it 3 days a week to this pool. It gave her warmth, it offered comfort, but now the parka is gone.
It disappeared with everything else we own in the Marshall Fire.
She lost it all. Her parka, her swimming memorabilia, all turned to ashes.
We were just devastated.
So her friend and swimming companion, Diane Sankey, had a thought.
Hey, why don't I just take a shot and reach out to the women's Navy swim coach?
Months later, a box was delivered to Darla, containing something she thought she could never replace.
She thought it was going to be a set of dishes.
The delivery? Another parka from 1988, just like the one she had.
Yeah, I opened it, and yeah, it made me cry.
A chance to make history with a new parka and a friend trying to help someone who lost everything.
It's amazing because it's exactly the same, but it now means even more.
For Next, I'm Tom Cole.
Darla and her family plan on rebuilding their home in Louisville. This weekend, it's a celebration of one street made safer. An example of some hypocrisy hoisted high around here. That and your feedback next.
Here's more completely false Rockies trivia. Nolan Arenado and Trevor Story wish they were here.
We have some late-breaking political news on a Friday evening. A judge has just tossed out the lawsuit that sought to keep Colorado's unaffiliated voters from participating in the Republican primary. If you're unaffiliated, you can choose one of the two-party primaries to vote in. There were some conservative Republicans trying to keep unaffiliateds out so that they couldn't push for a more centrist candidate. There's going to be a community celebration to open the South Marion Street Parkway. The South Marion Street Parkway has been a couple years in the making. It is the place in town where a 37-year-old mother of two, Alexis Bounds, was hit and killed 2 years ago while she was biking in that area. It's the place where some neighbors, even following her death, were willing to come out and say publicly that a bike lane would ruin the historic character of their neighborhood. They, of course, didn't want to go back to like horses and buggies. When they said history, they actually meant the status quo. They just didn't want to give up a car-dominated landscape. Well, they lost. There's now a bike lane there for the community to safely enjoy. It's a very good thing that we are out of time on this program because I am out of Rockies Purple Jackets. See you next time.